A night to remember. The Seattle skyline glittered like scattered diamonds against the velvet evening sky. Chloe Bennett stood at the edge of the rooftop bar, her fingers wrapped around a glass of white wine, watching the city lights flicker to life below. She had never been one for spontaneous adventures, but tonight felt different. The teaching conference had ended hours ago, and instead of returning to her quiet hotel room, something had pulled her here at 29. Chloe had built a comfortable life teaching art at Riverside High School in Portland. Her days were filled with paint-splattered easels, encouraging struggling students, and the familiar rhythm of lesson plans. But lately, that comfort had started to feel like a cage. She loved her work, truly loved it, but the predictability had begun to suffocate her creative spirit. Tonight, she wanted to feel alive. The stranger at the Barth rooftop bar hummed with quiet conversation and smooth jazz. Chloe found herself drawn to a corner seat, away from the clusters of conference attendees she recognized. She wanted solitude, or perhaps she wanted possibility. She wasn't quite sure which. That's when she noticed him. He sat 3 seats down, nursing what looked like whiskey. His attention focused on the amber liquid, as if it held secrets worth discovering. Dark hair slightly tousled, a fitted black shirt that suggested both style and confidence, and an air of quiet intensity that made Chloe's artist eye linger. He looked like he carried the weight of important decisions, yet in this moment, he seemed determined to set them down. Their eyes met accidentally, and Chloe felt her breath catch. His gaze was storm gray, intelligent, and surprisingly warm despite its intensity. A small smile played at the corner of his mouth. Not flirtatious, but understanding. As if he recognized a kindred spirit seeking temporary escape. He raised his glass slightly in a silent toast. Chloe found herself returning the gesture, her heart beating faster than it should for such a simple exchange. Conversation flows like wine minutes past. Or maybe it was only seconds before he stood and walked toward her. Chloe's pulse quickened, but she didn't look away. "Is this seat taken?" His voice was smooth, with a hint of something deeper beneath the surface. "It's all yours," Chloe replied. Surprised by her own boldness, he settled beside her and up close. She noticed the fine details, the slight shadow of stubble along his jaw, the way his shirt fit perfectly across his shoulders, the faint scent of cedar and rain that seemed to follow him. "You look like someone trying to escape something," he observed, his gray eyes studying her with genuine curiosity. Chloe laughed softly. "Is it that obvious?" "Takes one to know one," he admitted, taking a slow sip of his drink. "Bad day or bad year?" "Bad routine," Chloe answered honestly. "What about you?" "Bad expectations," he said with a wry smile. "I'm Nathan, by the way. Freelance photographer, when I can be. Problem solver, when I have to be. Chloe, teacher, aspiring artist. Current escapist." The conversation unfolded naturally, like watercolors bleeding into one another. Nathan spoke about traveling for photography projects, capturing moments that revealed hidden truths. Chloe shared her passion for teaching art, for helping students see the world differently. Neither asked probing questions about work details or personal history. Tonight was about the present, about 2 strangers finding unexpected connection. Hours dissolved. The bar gradually emptied. But Chloe and Nathan remained, their conversation deepening, moving from surface topics to dreams, fears, and the things that kept them awake at night. A decision made in starlight, at some point. Nathan's hand brushed against hers on the bar. The contact sent electricity through Chloe's skin. She looked up and found him watching her with an intensity that made everything else fade away. "I don't usually do this," Chloe whispered, though she wasn't sure what this was yet. "Neither do I," Nathan replied, his voice rough with honesty. "But I haven't felt this present in months, maybe years." The city sparkled below them. The night air carried the promise of rain, and Chloe made a choice that had nothing to do with lesson plans or responsible decisions. She leaned in. He met her halfway. When their lips touched, it felt like waking up after a long sleep. The kiss started gentle, exploratory, then deepened into something more urgent. Chloe's hands found the front of Nathan's shirt, pulling him closer. His fingers threaded through her hair, And for the first time in forever, Chloe felt completely, utterly alive when they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard. Nathan's forehead rested against hers. "Come with me," he murmured. "No expectations. No promises. Just tonight." Chloe knew she should say no. She should return to her hotel, wake up for her early flight, return to her predictable life. But the woman who played it safe wasn't the woman she wanted to be anymore. Yes, she breathed. The night that changed everything. They barely made it through the door of Nathan's hotel suite before they were kissing again. Clothes fell away like unnecessary barriers. Nathan's hands explored her skin with reverence and hunger. Chloe discovered new ways to feel beautiful, desired, free. They made love slowly at first, learning each other's rhythms, then with increasing passion. Between moments of intensity, they talked and laughed, sharing pieces of themselves without the burden of full truth. It felt perfect precisely because it was temporary, a beautiful parenthesis in their ordinary lives. As dawn approached, Chloe lay in Nathan's arms, listening to his steady heartbeat. She traced patterns on his chest, committing this feeling to memory. She knew she would paint this night someday, capturing the emotion if not the exact details. Nathan's breathing had slowed into sleep. Chloe carefully extracted herself from his embrace, gathering her clothes in the dim light. She dressed quietly, her heart aching with the bittersweetness of leaving. At the door, she paused and looked back. Nathan looked peaceful, vulnerable in sleep. Chloe wanted to wake him, to ask for his number, to make this more than one night. But the magic would break. Reality would intrude. Better to keep this memory perfect and untouched. She slipped out, closing the door with a soft click. Returned to reality. 3 weeks passed. Chloe returned to Portland, to her classroom, to her students. She threw herself into a new art project, using bold colors and emotional strokes that her students noticed and questioned. She told them she was experimenting with expressing freedom. She didn't mention the gride stranger who had awakened something in her. The autumn semester rolled forward. Leaves turned gold and crimson. Chloe prepared for new students, including several transfers from other districts. On a Tuesday morning, her classroom door opened during second period. The principal entered with a tall teenager in tow. He had dark hair, serious gray eyes, and an expression that suggested he'd rather be anywhere else. "Miss Bennett, this is Dylan Pierce. He's joining us from a private school in Seattle. Dylan's quite talented, according to his transcripts." Chloe smiled warmly, extending her hand. "Welcome, Dylan. Find any open seat." "We're working on perspective drawing today." Dylan nodded, his handshake brief and formal, before moving to a desk by the window. Chloe thought nothing of it. Transfer students arrived regularly. She had no reason to connect this quiet boy to that magical night in Seattle, not until 2 weeks later. When parent-teacher conferences rolled around, the moment everything shifted, Chloe had back-to-back appointments all evening. She was running on coffee and determination, discussing progress reports and behavioral concerns with a parade of parents. When 7 o'clock arrived, she was reviewing her notes for the final appointment. Dylan Pierce's father. A knock sounded at her classroom door. "Come in," Chloe called. Looking up with a professional smile, the man who entered stopped dead in the doorway. Chloe's smile froze. Her breath caught. The world tilted on its axis. Nathan, the freelance photographer. The stranger from the rooftop bar. The man she'd spent one perfect night with and never expected to see again. He stood there in an expensive charcoal suit, looking every bit the successful businessman and nothing like the casual artist he'd pretended to be. His gray eyes widened with recognition and shock. "Miss Bennett," he said carefully. His voice strained. "Mr. Pierce," Chloe managed. Though her voice sounded distant to her own ears, they stared at each other across her classroom. The air thick with unspoken words and impossible coincidence. Everything that had seemed beautifully simple 3 weeks ago suddenly became devastatingly complicated. Nathan Pierce wasn't a freelance photographer. And Chloe Bennett had just discovered that the father of her newest student was the man she'd given herself to completely. Believing she'd never see him again, the universe, it seemed, had a twisted sense of humor. The conversation that changed everything, the silence stretched between them like a chasm. Chloe's hands trembled as she clutched her gradebook, desperately trying to maintain composure. Nathan closed the classroom door quietly, his movements careful, controlled. "We need to talk," he said, his voice low and urgent. "You think?" Chloe's response came out sharper than intended. She took a breath, forcing herself into teacher mode. "You told me you were a freelance photographer." Nathan ran his hand through his hair, a gesture she remembered from that night. "I do photography. As a hobby. I just didn't mention the tech company I actually run. You didn't think to mention you had a son. You didn't ask about my personal life. Neither of us did. That was the point." His gray eyes searched hers. "Chloe, I never imagined this could happen. What are the odds?" She laughed, a brittle sound. "Apparently better than we thought." Nathan stepped closer, and Chloe instinctively moved back. He stopped, understanding the boundaries she was drawing. "Dylan can't know," Nathan said firmly. "He's been through too much already. His mother, my ex-wife, died 7 months ago. Car accident. He's barely holding it together." Chloe's anger softened into sympathy. "I'm so sorry. I had no idea. How could you? We were strangers playing pretend for one night." Nathan's voice carried regret. "But now, we're not strangers anymore. And my son is your student. This is a disaster. So what do we do?" Chloe asked, hating how helpless she sounded. "We pretend that night never happened. Professional distance. Nothing that could hurt Dylan or damage your career." Nathan's jaw tightened. "Can you do that?" Chloe thought of Dylan, the quiet boy who sat by her window and sketched with raw talent and barely contained pain. She thought of her career, her reputation, the ethics rules that could destroy everything she'd built. "Yes," she said, though the word tasted like ash. "For Dylan's sake." Nathan nodded, relief flickering across his face. "Thank you. Now, about his progress in your class?" They spent 20 minutes discussing Dylan's artwork, his technique, his potential. It was surreal, professional words layered over unspoken tension. When Nathan finally left, Chloe collapsed into her chair, her heart racing. One night, one beautiful, reckless night. And now, everything was infinitely complicated. The artist who hid his pain over the following weeks, Chloe watched Dylan carefully. He was talented, remarkably so, with an intuitive understanding of light and shadow that students twice his age struggled to grasp. But his art was dark, filled with stormy skies and fractured landscapes that spoke of internal turmoil. She found him after class one Friday, still working on a painting while other students rushed toward freedom. "That's powerful work," Chloe said gently. Approaching his easel, Dylan's brush paused. "It's just paint." Art is never just paint. It's emotion given form. Chloe studied the canvas, a lighthouse standing against violent waves. "What are you feeling when you create this?" For a long moment, Dylan said nothing. Then, quietly, like I'm drowning and nobody notices. Chloe's heart clenched. "I notice, Dylan, and I think your father notices too. He's busy saving the world with his technology. He doesn't have time for drowning kids." The bitterness in Dylan's voice was sharp enough to cut. "Parents aren't perfect," Chloe said carefully. "Sometimes they're so busy trying to fix everything that they miss what's right in front of them. But that doesn't mean they don't care." Dylan finally looked at her, his gray eyes so like his father's. "You talk like you know him." Chloe's pulse quickened. "I only know what any teacher knows from parent conferences. But I see how he looks at your work, Dylan. He's proud of you." Something in Dylan's expression softened slightly. He returned to his painting, adding touches of gold to the lighthouse beam, a small light pushing back against the darkness. "Thanks, Miss Bennett," he murmured. As Chloe left him to work, she realized she was walking a dangerous line. Getting involved with Dylan's emotional healing meant getting closer to Nathan. And closeness was exactly what they'd agreed to avoid. The stolen moments, despite their agreement. Circumstances kept pushing Chloe and Nathan together. School fundraisers, art shows, parent volunteer days. Each interaction was carefully professional. But underneath ran a current of awareness that neither could fully suppress. During a fall art exhibition, Chloe found herself alone in the gallery with Nathan. Dylan's lighthouse painting hung prominently, already garnering attention from local art collectors. He's incredibly gifted, Nathan said, standing beside her. Not too close, but close enough that Chloe could smell that cedar scent she remembered. He is. Art is helping him process his grief. Chloe kept her eyes on the painting. You should be proud.
I am.
Thanks to you. Nathan's voice dropped lower. Chloe, I need to tell you something. Don't. She cut him off, panic rising. Whatever you're going to say, please don't. I can't stop thinking about that night. The words hung between them, dangerous and electric. Chloe finally turned to face him, finding his gray eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made breathing difficult. Nathan, we can't. You know we can't. I know. But pretending you're just Dylan's teacher, pretending I don't remember every moment we shared, it's killing me. His hand moved slightly, as if to reach for her, then fell back. Tell me you don't feel this too. Chloe wanted to lie. She needed to lie, but the truth escaped anyway. I feel it. Every time I see you, every time Dylan mentions you, but feeling something doesn't mean we act on it. He's my student. You're his father. There are rules, ethics, boundaries that exist for good reasons. What if Dylan wasn't your student? Nathan asked quietly. What if circumstances were different? But they're not different. We have to deal with reality, not what ifs. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. They stepped apart quickly, creating proper distance just as two other parents entered the gallery. The moment shattered, but its residue lingered like smoke. That night, Chloe lay awake, Nathan's question circling through her mind. What if circumstances were different? What if she could explore these feelings without risking everything? But wishing didn't change reality. Whispers and suspicions, the school's rumor mill started grinding in November. Chloe first noticed the sideways glances from other teachers, the whispered conversations that stopped when she approached. She tried to ignore them, focusing on her students. But the tension grew. Finally, her colleague Rachel cornered her in the teacher's lounge. People are talking, Rachel said bluntly. About you and Nathan Pierce. Chloe's stomach dropped. There's nothing to talk about. You spend a lot of time with Dylan. Extra attention, private conversations after class. And Nathan is here constantly, way more than typical parents. Rachel's expression was concerned, not accusatory. I'm not judging, Chloe, but you need to be careful. If the wrong person notices, it could cause serious problems. I'm helping a grieving student find healing through art. That's my job, Chloe insisted, but doubt crept in. Had she been giving Dylan special treatment? Letting her complicated feelings toward Nathan influence her professional judgment. Just be careful, Rachel repeated. That's all I'm saying. The warning rattled Chloe. She started documenting every interaction with Dylan, keeping detailed notes about his progress, making sure other students received equal attention and encouragement. But she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Judged, found wanting. The situation came to a head during a parent-teacher basketball game fundraiser. Chloe had volunteered to help organize, not realizing Nathan had signed up to play. Watching him on the court, laughing with other parents, moving with athletic grace, she felt the familiar pull of attraction. Their eyes met across the gymnasium. For one unguarded moment, everything they were trying to hide showed clearly on both their faces. Want? Regret? Impossible longing then. Dylan appeared beside Chloe, following his father's gaze. He likes you, Dylan said quietly. Chloe's heart stopped. What? My dad? He looks at you different than he looks at other people.
Ow.
Dylan's gray eyes studied her. And you look at him the same way? The confrontation, Chloe couldn't breathe. Every carefully constructed wall she'd built over the past months crumbled with Dylan's simple observation. I don't know what you think you're seeing. I'm not stupid. Miss Bennett. He cut her off, his voice harder now. I see how you both act around each other. All formal and careful, but underneath, there's something else. Chloe's mind raced, searching for the right words, the proper teacher response that would deflect and protect. But Dylan deserved better than deflection. Your father and I have a professional relationship, she said carefully. That's all, you're lying. Dylan's accusation wasn't angry, just sad. Everyone lies to me. They think I can't handle truth because I'm grieving. But I'd rather have honest pain than comfortable lies. He walked away before Chloe could respond, leaving her standing in the noisy gymnasium, feeling like the worst kind of hypocrite. She preached authenticity and emotional honesty in art, but she was living a lie. That night she called Nathan. We need to talk. Really talk. Dylan knows something's going on. They met at a quiet coffee shop, far from school, far from anyone who might recognize them. In a corner booth, surrounded by the hiss of espresso machines and low conversation, they finally stopped pretending. He confronted me at the game, Chloe said. He's not blind, Nathan. He sees what we're trying to hide. Nathan rubbed his face tiredly. What did you tell him? That we have a professional relationship. But he didn't believe me. Chloe wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. We can't keep doing this. The sneaking around, the careful distance that isn't distant enough. It's not fair to Dylan, and it's not fair to us. So what are you saying? Nathan's voice was careful, controlled. Not everything, but enough that he understands why things feel complicated. Absolutely not. Nathan's response was immediate. He's 16 and dealing with grief. Adding this confusion would destroy him. He's 16 and smart enough to know when adults are lying to him, Chloe countered. Right now, his imagination is probably creating scenarios worse than reality. The reality is that I spent the night with my son's teacher before either of us knew the connection, Nathan said harshly. How is that better than his imagination? Chloe flinched. When you say it like that, it sounds sordid, isn't it? Nathan's eyes were bleak. We made a mistake, Chloe. A beautiful, incredible mistake, but still a mistake. And now we're paying for it. The words stung, even though part of Chloe agreed. So we just keep lying? Keep pretending until Dylan graduates. That's 2 more years of this torture, unless you have a better solution. Chloe didn't. They sat in silence, drinking coffee that had gone cold. 2 people trapped by circumstance and choices made in a different lifetime. Finally, Nathan spoke. Maybe I should transfer him to another school. No, Chloe's response was immediate. He's finally healing, finally creating art that means something. Ripping him away now would undo months of progress. Then what? Nathan's frustration finally broke through. Because I can't keep seeing you and not touching you. Can't keep pretending that night meant nothing when it changed everything. It changed everything for me too, Chloe whispered. Their eyes met. And in that moment, the coffee shop and its occupants faded away. It was just them, the way it had been on that rooftop bar, before reality and responsibility crashed down. Nathan reached across the table, his hand covering hers. The touch sent electricity through Chloe's body, awakening every memory she'd tried to suppress. We could try, he said softly. Wait until Dylan graduates. Then see if this thing between us is real or just leftover chemistry. 2 years is a long time. I know. But you're worth waiting for. Chloe wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe they could navigate this impossible situation with patience and care. But deep down, she knew something had to give. That something broke 3 days later when Dylan appeared at her classroom door after school. His expression stormy. I followed my dad last night, he announced without preamble. Saw him meet you at that coffee shop. Saw him hold your hand. Chloe's world tilted. Dylan, how long? His voice shook with betrayal. How long have you been lying to me? And there it was. The moment Chloe had dreaded, arriving with devastating inevitability. No more hiding. No more careful distance. Just truth, raw and unavoidable. Sit down, she said quietly. I'll tell you everything. The truth laid bare. Dylan sat rigid in the student chair, his jaw clenched, gray eyes burning with anger and hurt. Chloe settled across from him, her heart pounding so hard she could barely hear her own thoughts. I met your father before you transferred to this school, she began, forcing herself to maintain eye contact. It was at a conference in Seattle. We met by chance at a hotel bar. How romantic, Dylan said bitterly. Chloe pressed on. We talked for hours. He told me he did freelance photography. I told him I taught art. Neither of us shared last names or personal details. We were just two strangers who connected for one evening. One evening? Dylan's voice dripped with skepticism. That's all? Chloe's cheeks flushed, but she didn't look away. Yes. One evening. And the next morning, I left before he woke up. I never expected to see him again. Some of the anger in Dylan's expression shifted to confusion. So you didn't know about me? Not until you walked into my classroom. And I didn't know your father was Nathan Pierce until he showed up for parent-teacher conferences. Chloe leaned forward. Dylan, please believe me. If I'd known, I would have requested your transfer to another teacher immediately. The last thing I wanted was this situation. Dylan processed this information, his fingers drumming against the desk. Does he feel the same way? About you? I mean, the question caught Chloe off guard. I don't know how to answer that. Try honesty. You said you'd tell me everything. Chloe took a deep breath. Yes, we both still have feelings from that night. But we agreed to keep everything professional because you're my student and I'm your teacher. We've been trying to do the right thing. By lying to me? By protecting you, Chloe corrected gently. You've been through tremendous loss, Dylan. Your father didn't want to add more confusion and pain to your life. Dylan stood abruptly, pacing to the window. His reflection in the glass looked older than 16, worn down by grief and now betrayal. Everyone keeps trying to protect me, he said quietly. Like I'm made of glass. But I'm not breaking, Miss Bennett. I already broke when my mom died. What happens now doesn't matter as much as everyone thinks. It matters to your father. And it matters to me. Dylan turned, studying her with an intensity that reminded Chloe painfully of Nathan. Do you love him? The question hung in the air, demanding honesty. I don't know, Chloe answered truthfully. I barely know him. But I care about him, yes? And I care about you. Which is why this situation is so complicated. Dylan returned to the chair, some of his anger deflating. So what happens now? You break up before you even started dating. I transfer schools? Everyone pretends this conversation never happened. I don't know, Chloe admitted. What do you want to happen? The question seemed to surprise Dylan. He sat quietly for a long moment, and Chloe watched emotions play across his face. Anger, confusion, sadness, and finally, something that looked like acceptance. I want my dad to be happy, he said finally. He hasn't been, not really, since before the divorce. Even when Mom was alive, he was just going through motions. But when he talks about you, even trying to hide it, there's something different in his voice. Chloe's throat tightened. Dylan, and you actually see me? He continued. Not as a project or a tragedy, but as a person. Most teachers look at me like I'm about to shatter. You look at me like I'm an artist. You are an artist. Because you taught me to be one. Dylan's gray eyes met hers. If you two have feelings for each other, real feelings, then figure it out. Just stop lying about it. Father and son, that evening, Nathan received an unexpected text from Dylan. We need to talk. Now, found his son in the home studio they'd set up. Surrounded by canvases in various stages of completion, Dylan stood before his latest work, a painting of two figures separated by a storm, reaching toward each other across the chaos. What's this about? Nathan asked carefully. Miss Bennett told me everything. Dylan didn't turn around. About Seattle. About the hotel. About how you met before I became her student. Nathan's heart sank. Dylan, I can explain, she already did. Dylan finally faced his father. And honestly, get it. You both thought it was just one night. Neither of you planned this mess. I'm sorry I didn't tell you myself. You should be. Dylan's voice carried disappointment rather than anger. I'm not a kid, Dad. I'm 16. Mom died 7 months ago, and I'm still here, still functioning. I can handle truth better than I can handle being protected from it. Nathan moved closer, studying the painting. Is that us? In the storm? It's everyone who lets fear keep them apart. Dylan picked up a brush, adding white to the reaching hands. You've been miserable for years, Dad. Since the divorce, maybe before. I remember you and Mom fighting constantly, both pretending everything was fine when I was around. But I heard the arguments. I knew. The admission hit Nathan hard. You never said anything. because kids aren't supposed to know their parents are unhappy. But we do. We always do. Dylan set down his brush. When you came back from that Seattle conference, something was different. You smiled more. You seemed lighter. I didn't know why then, but now I understand. Dylan, my feelings for Chloe don't diminish what I felt for your mother. I know. Mom would want you to be happy too. Dylan's voice cracked slightly. Before the accident, she told me she hoped you'd find someone who really saw you. Not the successful businessman or the reliable ex-husband, but the actual person underneath. Nathan pulled his son into a hug, both of them holding on tightly. When did you get so wise? Had good teachers? Dylan mumbled against his father's shoulder. When they separated, Nathan wiped at his eyes. So what do I do now? You figure out if what you feel for Miss Bennett is real, and if it is, you fight for it. Dylan managed a small smile. Just maybe wait until I'm not in her class anymore. That would be less weird. The school board meeting the following week, Chloe was called to meet with Principal Harrison and 2 school board members. Her stomach churned as she entered the conference room, finding Nathan already there, looking composed but tense. Please sit, Miss Bennett, Principal Harrison said formally. We've received concerns about your relationship with Mr. Pierce and whether it's affected your professional judgment regarding Dylan Pierce. Chloe's hands clenched in her lap. I can assure you, let me finish, Harrison interrupted. We've reviewed Dylan's grades, your interactions with all students, and compared your treatment of Dylan to your treatment of other students in your classes. The silence stretched. Nathan's expression was unreadable, but Chloe saw his hands gripping the armrests. Our conclusion, Harrison continued, is that you've maintained appropriate professional boundaries in the classroom. Dylan's grades reflect his actual performance and talent. However, the appearance of impropriety is damaging to the school's reputation and potentially disruptive to the learning environment. What are you saying? Chloe asked, though she already knew. We're recommending you transfer to Lincoln High School for the spring semester. They need an art teacher, and it removes any conflict of interest. Harrison's expression softened. You're an excellent teacher, Chloe. This isn't a punishment. It's a solution that protects everyone involved. Chloe felt relief and disappointment war within her. And Dylan? Dylan will finish the year here with a different art teacher. Mr. Pierce has agreed to this arrangement. Nathan spoke for the first time. May I have a moment alone with Miss Bennett? Harrison hesitated, then nodded. 5 minutes. When the room cleared, Nathan moved to sit beside Chloe. Are you okay? I'm losing my students mid-year. So no, not really. Chloe's voice wavered. But it's the right decision. I know that. Chloe, once you're at Lincoln and Dylan isn't your student anymore, there's no ethical barrier. We could actually try this. See if what we felt that night was real or just a moment out of time. You want to date your son's former teacher? That won't look strange? I don't care how it looks. Nathan took her hand. I've spent too many years caring what people think, living up to expectations, following rules that kept me safe but empty. That night with you, I felt alive for the first time in years. In these past months, even while we were pretending and hiding, just being near you has made everything brighter. Chloe's eyes filled with tears. We barely know each other, and let's change that. Real dates, real conversations, getting to know each other without secrets or complications. Nathan squeezed her hand. Give us a chance, Chloe, a real chance. What about Dylan? He's the one who told me to fight for you. A laugh escaped through Chloe's tears. He did. My son is apparently wiser than both of us. Nathan smiled, that warm, genuine smile she remembered from Seattle. So what do you say? Can we start over? Chloe looked at their joined hands, thinking about that night, these complicated months, and the possibilities stretching ahead. We can't really start over. Too much has happened. Then we start from here. Messy history and all. From here, Chloe agreed softly, but slowly. I want to do this right, slowly Nathan promised. I can do slow. Building something real, the spring semester brought changes. Chloe settled into Lincoln High School, finding new students to inspire, new colleagues to befriend. She missed her old classroom, missed watching Dylan's artistic growth. The distance provided breathing room she hadn't realized she needed. Nathan called her that first week. Dinner? Somewhere we can actually talk without worrying who's watching? They chose a small Italian restaurant in a neighborhood where neither was likely to be recognized. Over pasta and wine, they told each other true stories. Not the edited versions from Seattle, but real histories with complications and flaws. Nathan talked about his marriage, how he and his ex-wife had grown apart long before Dylan was born, how they'd tried to make it work for their son's sake, but ultimately caused more damage by staying together. He spoke about building his tech company from nothing. The pressure of success, the loneliness at the top. Chloe shared her own struggles. Growing up with parents who valued practical careers over art, fighting to become a teacher against their wishes, the slow realization that her safe, predictable life had become a prison of her own making. That conference in Seattle had been her first spontaneous act in years. So we were both running from something, Nathan observed, and ran straight into each other, Chloe finished. Think the universe was trying to tell us something? If so, the universe has a twisted sense of timing. They laughed, and it felt easy, natural. The connection from that first night was still there. But now it had depth, foundation, reality, beneath the attraction. They dated properly. Movies and museums, long walks through the city, phone calls that stretched past midnight. Nathan introduced Chloe to his business world cautiously, and she showed him her artistic circle. They moved slowly, building trust and understanding. Dylan joined them sometimes, awkward at first, but gradually relaxing. He showed Chloe his new artwork, accepting her feedback with the openness he'd had in her class. She watched father and son together, seeing how Nathan was learning to really see his son, not as a responsibility but as a person. 3 months into dating, Nathan invited Chloe to his house for dinner. Dylan had cooked an ambitious Italian meal that was slightly overdone but made with heart. Not bad for a first attempt, Chloe said diplomatically, swallowing a slightly rubbery piece of chicken. It's terrible, Dylan admitted cheerfully. But Dad's worse, so I'm the chef now. After dinner, Dylan disappeared to his studio, leaving Nathan and Chloe alone on the back patio. The spring evening was warm, the sky streaked with pink and gold. He likes you, Nathan said softly. Really likes you. Not just as his former teacher. I like him too. He's special, Nathan. The way he sees the world, the depth in his art, he's going to be remarkable thanks to you. Chloe shook her head. I just gave him tools. The talent was always there. Nathan turned to face her, his gray eyes serious. I need to tell you something, and I don't want you to freak out. Chloe's pulse quickened. That's a terrifying way to start a sentence. I'm falling in love with you. The words came out simply, honestly. I know it's only been a few months of official dating, but if I'm honest, I started falling that night in Seattle. And every moment since has just made it stronger. Chloe's breath caught. Nathan, you don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know. This isn't just chemistry or leftover attraction. It's real for me. You're real for me? Tears gathered in Chloe's eyes, but they were happy tears. I'm falling too. It terrifies me because everything about us started wrong, but somehow it feels more right than anything in my life. Nathan cupped her face, his thumb wiping away a tear. So, where do we go from here? Forward, Chloe said. Together. He kissed her then, soft and deep and full of promise. Not the desperate passion of that first night, but something better. Something built on truth and time and choice. From inside, Dylan's voice called out, If you two are done being romantic, I made dessert, and it's actually good. They broke apart laughing. Hand in hand, they walked back inside, toward the boy who'd brought them together and the family they were becoming. 6 months later, the small garden ceremony was perfect in its simplicity. 30 guests, mostly close friends and family, gathered under a canopy of flowers as late summer sunshine filtered through the leaves. Chloe wore a simple cream dress, wildflowers woven into her hair. Nathan stood at the altar in a dark blue suit. Dylan beside him as best man. As Chloe walked down the aisle, she caught Dylan's eye. He smiled, genuine and warm, mouthing thank you. She'd asked him weeks ago if he was truly okay with this, if having her as a stepmother would feel strange or wrong. It feels right, he'd said simply. You two found each other twice. That's not coincidence. That's fate giving you a second chance. Don't waste it. The ceremony was brief, their vows personal and heartfelt. When the officiant pronounced them married, Nathan kissed Chloe like she was the only person in the world, and the small crowd erupted in applause. At the reception, Dylan gave a toast that had everyone laughing and crying. He talked about his mother, honoring her memory, while acknowledging that loving someone new didn't diminish past love. He spoke about Chloe teaching him that art was about truth, and how his father and Chloe had finally found the courage to live their own truth. To messy beginnings and beautiful endings, Dylan raised his glass. And to families that find each other in unexpected ways.